Hello everyone, welcome back to 428 Shibuya Scramble. So it looks like we have an Achi ending before I get into like more of the bonus stuff. So let's see. Achi. Achi 1530. Okay, tell me. Alarm bells start going off in Achi's mind. Someone from the kidnapping crew was in that van. It was dangerous to approach carelessly. Whoops. He told me wait. He told me wait. Achi shouted. But she didn't appear to hear his cries. The hope of rescuing her sister had driven all else from her mind. Achi started to run after her. Hitomi had reached the vehicle already. She brought her face close to one of its windows. But the tinted glass obscured the view inside. Hitomi circled around to the minivan's other side. Achi saw her grasping at the door. She slipped out of his view for just a moment. There was a thunderous explosion, and a gout of flame tore the roof off the minivan like it was made of aluminum foil. Hitomi? Horrified, Achi charged through rolling smoke, searching for Hitomi. He saw two figures sprawled in the street, several meters from the van. Hitomi and Kanon. Hitomi, wake up! Achi cradled her in his arms, and her eyes drifted open faintly. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Hitomi didn't appear to understand him. Her only response was a blank, dazed look. There was a small patch of red on her face. Achi wiped it gently away with a finger. He saw no further signs of bleeding. She must have been splattered by someone else's blood then. As far as he could tell, she hadn't been gravely injured. Achi let out a sigh of relief. Tell me, is she alright? Kanon stared on the ground. Her clothes were scorched in places, and she was bleeding from her head. Kanon, did you save her? Is she alright? Yeah, what about her sister? Kanon didn't respond. No, it can't be. Achi went to look inside the van. Amidst the smoke and the flames, he could make out the outline of a body. What happened here? Achi had to look away. Get Hitomi out of here. Hurry. Those guys show back up. Kanon's face twisted up with pain. Alright. Achi settled Hitomi carefully in his arms. Wait, I need to tell you something. Kanon's pained gasp called him back. Alfred. Huh? Alfred. That's the name of the mastermind. I'm sure it'll come up again if you keep pursuing this. But if you value your life, don't get involved with Alfred any further. Now go. Okay, and thanks. Wait! Again, Conan stopped him.
What is it?
I've been wondering something.
Yeah?
About your shirt. What about my shirt? There's another face to this city. When you casually gaze at the sights amidst all the normal everyday things, there are stories that nobody has told. Let this tale of one brave fellow fighting in secret now be a secret no longer. And then we're gonna go... Oh god. Huff, huff, huff. Labored breathing came from a shrub along the road where the minivan had exploded. This damage, it's way worse than I thought. The muttering voice was punctuated by further halting breaths. And the speaker had a name. Okay. And then... Maria... I walked counter to the throng of people heading toward the scene of the explosion. The explosion happened near Shibuya-ku, Chome, near the intersection of Konendori and Oregon Hill. A number of curious onlookers have flocked to the scene, but it turns out there's some other individuals there as well. Mr. Bottleman. 4 p.m. What the heck? What's going on? Cried Big Joe, gazing up at the rising plume of black smoke. A crowd of emergency workers and curious onlookers milled about the scene of the explosion, but none noticed the empty can standing by the roadside. Hey, Flaps! Big Joe turned to the dumbstruck juice box sitting beside him. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, how am I supposed to know?
Flaps gave a shrug.
Though there is one thing I do know for sure.
His expression turned grim.
We've lost a lot of our friends.
It wasn't just humans who had been caught up in the explosion. A bag of recyclables near the minivan had also been caught in the blast, and all the trash inside it had been burned to cinders. Like Flaps and Big Joe, the other trash had been waiting to be brought to the recycling plant to start a new life. Damn it! And right when we were all on the cusp of being reborn. Big Joe bit his lip in frustration. Cardboard. Mom. Oh, Scraps. I won't forget you guys. Tears of coffee streamed from Big Joe's eyes.
Big Joe,
Flaps mumbled.
Take a look at this.
There was a small green mass stuck to the surface of the road.
What do you think it is?
The thing was sticky and it gave off a foul stench. It pulsed rhythmically as if it were alive. I'll tell you what it is, Big Joe said, his mouth twisting up. It's gross. The green mass wiggled and writhed for a while, but eventually went stiff, as if it had stopped breathing. And then it vanished with a slurp. Damn it! Why me? Why? A rustling came from a shrub near where Big Joe and Flaps were standing. That Achi punk didn't even see me in here! A plastic bottle hopped into view, huffing and cursing.
Hey, it's Mean Clean!
The coffee can and juice box cried out as one.
What the heck is he doing here? It's like seeing a ghost, Big Joe.
Dude, Big Joe said to the newcomer. They say that I retired ages ago. Mean Clean finished with a grimace. Yeah, that was the plan. Water burbled from a sizable hole in his midsection.
Dude, look!
Big Joe pointed to Mean Clean's belly. Yeah, so I went from big gulp to double gulp. Big deal. But the sweat was beading on Mean Clean's forehead. Good grief. Just look at me all messed up. Whatever moron's responsible for this, I'm gonna find him and kick his ass, Mean Clean grumbled. He stomped around with his bow-legged gait, glaring about him as he went. Whoa, he seemed really pissed off.
He did always have a short temper,
Flap said.
Even back when he was the hero of Shibuya.
Once, Mean Clean had indeed been the hero of Shibuya. What is this? It had all started about 10 years before. A strange religious group had appeared on the streets, preaching while brandishing vegetables in their hands. They seemed harmless enough at first, until their adherents started going on rampages, violently scattering vegetables all over town. The discarded vegetables quickly rotted, suffusing the whole area with the stench of garbage. The Great Compost Incident, they called it. The police ramped up their supervision of Shibuya, but because unlawful dumping of garbage was only punishable with a modest fine under Japanese law, there was no way to rein in the believers' environmental terrorism. Day by day, Shibuya descended into filth. That was when a young Mean Clean stepped up. As a potential article of trash himself, he could not stand to see his city sullied so, and he was determined to do whatever was needed to protect the town. Sending up a wild battle cry, he went about accosting the vegetable tossers one by one, picking up their strewn garbage and disposing of it properly. This glorious struggle went on for 8 years. By the time it was done, Mean Clean was tattered and worn, a shadow of his former self. His friends, Big Joe and Flaps included, gathered around him as he prepared to meet his end.
Hang in there, Mean Clean, cried Flaps. You can make it.
Yeah, you can't die, dude. Their earnest pleas brought a faint smile to Mean Clean's face, and with a weak voice he whispered his last request.
Throw me away in the bin for reusable waste. I want to be recycled when I go.
Big Joe and his other friends did as he had asked. But the fact was that 90% of plastic bottles were burned without being recycled. Even when they did get recycled, many were made into other products such as clothing, clear plastic filing folders, or vinyl rope. The odds of Mean Clean coming back as another plastic bottle were immeasurably low. After collection, Mean Clean was pulverized, processed, and born anew as a t-shirt. He was then passed on from person to person until he met Achi at a second-hand clothing store. When Achi hit the streets of Shibuya, Mean Clean was saddened and dismayed. He had shown the vegetable cult the light, but still Shibuya was not beautiful. If anything, it was marred by even more trash than in the old days. It turned out that the religious sect was not his only enemy. Many of the people of Shibuya were themselves responsible for dirtying their once fair city. Shibuya was overwhelmed with trash. The city was rotting. But on his own, Mean Clean could do nothing. Each time he gazed out from Achi's t-shirt, he was awash with frustration at his own impotence. Flaps slapped an adhesive bandage across Mean Clean's abdomen.
So, how'd you get your old form back?
Hooch's box asked. Mean Clean rubbed at his midsection.
It happened during the explosion.
The detonation had propelled a fragment of the minivan's windshield right toward Achi's chest. Making a split-second decision, Mean Clean slipped free of the t-shirt and took a glass shrapnel in Achi's place. Achi escaped injury without knowing what saved him and left the scene and Mean Clean behind. However you look at it, this wasn't just an accident. Someone must have planted a bomb or something. Mean Clean's face showed a mix of pain and anger. Half of his mineral water had spilled out. The water was effectively Mean Clean's blood. Having lost so much in one fell swoop, he was practically dead already. It was only sheer force of will that kept him on his feet.
But the person who planted the bomb isn't the issue, Mean Clean continued. The one I'm after is whoever plotted to kill me and Achi.
Flaps and Big Joe exchanged glances.
Dude, someone's trying to kill you?
What do you mean? Asked Flaps. Mean Clean's face grew grimmer.
There was a second explosion. Someone was after us, no question about it.
Neither Big Joe nor Flaps had any idea what Mean Clean was talking about. Had the shock of the explosion messed up their friend's head? But Mean Clean went on, his expression entirely serious. That shard of glass wasn't going for me and Achi, not at first. It was going one way, then its trajectory changed mid-flight and it came right at us. That couldn't have been caused by the initial explosion. Something else exploded just an instant later, somewhere off to the side. Big Joe listened intently, his expression vacant. He couldn't make any sense of it all.
But that doesn't necessarily mean someone was gunning for you, Flap said. I mean, couldn't it have just been a coincidence?
No way, said Mean Clean. Not a chance.
Who did it then? Asked Big Joe. And why?
That I don't know. Flaps threw up his hands in defeat. Still, said Big Joe, now that you mention it, I did feel something back then, I'm sure of it. No, someone, with murder on his mind. He peered around uneasily.
What is...
Huey? Just then someone came lurching by. It was an empty sake jar, well, empty of sake anyhow. He'd since been planted with the bonsai. Others recognized him at once. The old fellow's name was Hooch. He was a slovenly drunkard, but also a walking encyclopedia of Shibuya, widely trusted by the trash of the city.
Been drinking since noon again, old man?
Big Joe rolled his eyes.
Nah, lately I've been sticking to sweet potato shochu, Hooch informed him,
his excuse completely failing to serve its intended purpose.
It's done wonders for my bowels.
His toothless guffaws reeked of booze. Look, this is no laughing matter. Someone's trying to kill Mean Clean and... Ugh, dude, you stink. Big Joe wrinkled his nose at a brand new stench. You just let one rip, didn't you, old man?
My apologies. Like I said, wonders.
As he chortled, Hooch let out another long and noisy olfactory assault.
It's been a long time, old man,
Mean Clean said. The smile disappeared from Hooch's face as his eyes slowly focused on the water bottle.
Mean Clean? I thought you went into retirement.
Yeah, I'd seen too much trouble.
Why you back then?
To look for more. Hooch's expression stiffened.
There's something you gotta hear, Mean Clean. Listen well.
But Hooch didn't get a chance to finish. With a steamy hissing sound, A long, slender something came reaching down from above. It was a green tentacle. What in the what? The tendril wrapped itself around Hooch's body. Oh man! Before Mean Clean could move in for the rescue, Hooch was lofted into the air. That looks just like the green thing we saw earlier. Flap shouted and pointed. Hooch was receding into the distance. There was nothing Mean Clean and the others could do. You will all die. You will become trash. You who circle back around, who bear the seal. The voice seemed to come out of nowhere, and it vanished just as quickly. Only the scent of the gas Hooch had passed lingered behind. What the heck? What was that? It had all happened so fast. Hooch had been snatched away before Mean Clean and the others could even react. You will all die. You will become trash. That's what the mysterious voice had said. Given the murderous vibes Big Joe had felt at the scene of the explosion and the threatening voice, there was only one logical conclusion. There's no doubt about it, Mean Clean said. Someone out there is trying to kill me. No, trying to kill us. He stared fixedly up into the sky. Afraid that they'd be attacked by the green thing again, Mean Clean and his companions decided to relocate. They needed a place with good visibility so they couldn't be taken unawares. Someplace open, with a view in all directions. Someplace like the roof of a building. Kano... Kano went to South Hill in Nonpadai alone. The building takes its name from a rough translation of Nonpadai, the name of the area where it's located. The official name is South Hill Building, but since this is awkward to say, it's frequently shortened. When Kano showed up here, Mean Clean and his pals were on the roof as well. "15 minutes had passed since Hooch was carried off by the green thing. The trio had relocated to a rooftop, where they continued to discuss their predicament. Detective Tachino, what's the meaning of this? Bring me Hitomi Osawa, and I'll let this girl go. Why? Why do you need Hitomi for? This isn't like you. It's so weird. The Detective Tachino who I know. Man, said Big Joe, this place sure is noisy. Not far away, two men wearing suits were having a big argument. I'm sorry. Flats dipped his head in apology. I couldn't find any place else that was safe. Well, never mind, Big Joe said. Let's get back to the discussion. Right, Flaps replied. So what I don't understand is what the voice said. Don't you think it's strange that it told us we would become trash? Big Joe nodded. That is strange. I mean, we're already trash. Telling us we're going to be trash doesn't make sense. Exactly. I know why someone's after you though, dude, Big Joe told Mean Clean. Think about it, you're the hero of Shibuya. Bad guys always go after folks who are on the side of justice. But Mean Clean remained silent, lost in thought. You who circle back around, who bear the seal. You who circle back around, who bear the seal. What did that mean? Those phrases had to refer to them somehow. Big Joe. Flaps. Hooch. Mean Clean. What do the four of them have in common? Please, stop this. Hurry up. Bring Hitomi to me. Can't you at least tell me what's going on? Go now, or so help me. I'll shoot. The back and forth between the two humans seemed to be approaching some sort of climax. Damn it. Those guys are so loud. And I was just on the verge of a flash of insight. Mean Clean gritted his teeth as he glared at the men. Hey, is that it? Big Joe cried out, pointing at an elliptical object in the sky. Is that the thing that attacked Hooch? Mean Clean and Flaps looked where he was pointing. But right away, they shook their heads and slumped their shoulders in disappointment. Nah, Flaps said. That's just a blimp. A blimp? A big flying advertisement, basically, Flaps explained proudly. They float through the skies above the city promoting things. Big Joe went red in the face. I knew that. Don't act all superior just 'cause you know stuff. I wasn't acting superior. Shut up, you wimp. Wimp? Flaps exclaimed. You know, there are some things it's just not nice to say. What's with you? Acting all high and mighty. You're just paper. Pulp! I'm made of pulp, technically speaking. As the two argued, Mean Clean's mind wondered. You who bear the seal. You who bear the seal. What in the world did it mean? He felt like he was overlooking something important. A mark. A seal. What did it mean? Huffed Big Joe. Don't try and act like you're anything more than a dumb kid. Hey! You know, Big Joe, it might do you some good to learn a little more about the world if you want to get by. The two were still at it, harder than ever now. Alright then, smarty pants, Big Joe pouted. How is that there blimp able to fly? Flaps chuckled, a grin spreading across his face. Allow me to explain. That blimp is filled with a large volume of gas. Specifically a non-flammable gas called helium. It's less dense than air, thus causing the blimp to float. Huh? I don't got a clue what you're saying. Basically, it's filled with a gas that's lighter than air. What's all this gas stuff you're going on about? Are you telling me you don't know what gas is? Flaps blinked in disbelief. Helium, ethylene, propane. Those are all gases that exist here on Earth. They can be lighter than air or flammable, and they're used for all kinds of things. Big Joe appeared to be understanding less and less. His face twisted into a grimace. Okay, Flaps said with mock patience. I'll make it easy for you. You know what farts are, right? Well, they're gas, too. Methane gas, and... Well, why didn't you say that in the first place? Methane is a colorless, transparent gas that's contained within farts, and it happens to be very flammable. So if you were to flick on a lighter close to one of Hooch's farts... Flaps stopped abruptly with a sudden gasp of realization. Ah, yeah, that's it. What's it? What's what? Asked the coffee can. Mean Clean, Big Joe, I figured it out. Where's this coming from all of a sudden? Mean Clean asked, rather taken aback. He hadn't been listening to the conversation at all. Let's go back to the scene of the crime. I think I've solved the mystery of the second explosion. Osawa. This was no time to be looking at the internet. Osawa closed the browser. He was curious about Pretty Honey's response, but it would just have to wait. Just as the browser window was closing, however, a couple of lines jumped out at him. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. It's never too late. Right now, that was about the most reassuring thing Osawa could possibly hear. He would do whatever he could. All he could do was try his best and refuse to give up. As he pondered this, Osawa opened his email, pulling up the images of the human testing on the monitor.
What is this?
Kajiwara stared at the monitor as if unable to look away.
These are images from unauthorized clinical testing of an antiviral drug I developed, carried out by my company without my knowledge. Images of a... I'm sorry, what was that?
The detective frowned at the unfamiliar terminology.
In simple terms, the antiviral is a wonder drug to combat the Ua virus.
Hold on. Maria is infected with the Ua virus, isn't that right?
Yes, Ua is a species of virus discovered in South Africa relatively recently. Roughly 12 hours after infection, patients develop a cough, then a fever, then begin vomiting, and ultimately begin to bleed uncontrollably from all over, resulting in death. The mortality rate is...
Osawa was reluctant to say it. Kajiwara held his breath, waiting.
It's nearly 100%.
Kajiwara shuddered. Let's see, I'm just gonna skip ahead to the mean clean stuff. Mystery. Never mind that. Right now, these guys are headed for the scene of the minivan bombing, trying to solve the mystery of the second explosion. The mystery of the second explosion had been solved. At Flap's suggestion, the three friends had returned to the site of the minivan blast.
Right, of course.
Flap scratched his chin and nodded as he eyed the scene.
Look, just explain what's going on here, Mean Clean demanded. And no big words, added Big Joe.
Flaps was too obviously enjoying his little detective act.
Take a look right here if you would.
Flaps pointed to the drainage ditch at the edge of the street. Big Joe peered into it.
That reeks.
It smelled of rotten tobacco.
What you're smelling is hydrogen sulfide.
Breathing in too much can kill you.
It's produced and released alongside methane by food waste.
What about it?
This place doesn't usually smell anywhere near this bad, Flaps explained, but for some reason today it's really foul. Which means... You're still following me, right?
The others just stood there, staring at him blankly.
Right, anyway, along with the large volume of hydrogen sulfide, there's also a large volume of methane gas rising up from this ditch. So what happened, you see, is that flammable methane from here was ignited by flames from the minivan explosion, triggering a second explosion.
The others just stood there, staring at him even more blankly.
Now, you're probably wondering how it is that I realized all this. Hold on a minute, Mean Clean grumbled. If what you say is true, then it was just a coincidence that piece of windshield glass came flying at me and Achi. Yes, Flap said meekly. That's right. But I tell you, I could sense it. Someone was trying to kill me. If this was just a coincidence, how do you explain that? Yeah, Big Joe chimed in. See, that was bugging me, but that was what was bugging me about all this, too. You can't just go around saying stuff like that, Flaps. No, but I mean... Flaps's voice faltered. He didn't have a good answer for Mean Clean's question. For a while, the three of them stood in thought. Then Mean Clean broke the silence. So, this may sound ridiculous, but here's what I think, he began. They've got Flaps's deduction and those murderous vibes I felt. We need to think of a way to make those two things fit together, somehow. If the methane gas were capable of thought... It was an idea straight out of left field. Flaps and Big Joe were dumbstruck. So you figured it out. It was the voice they heard before. That weird angle of Flaps. This time it sounded very close by indeed. And yet they could see nobody else. I was the one who controlled the blast to send that glass shard hurtling toward you. But here you are, still alive. Where are you? Mean Clean shouted. You who circle back around, who bear the seal, you will become trash. The voice repeated its eerie mantra. Mean Clean, over here! Flap shouted, pointing at the drainage ditch. Crescent-shaped eyes peered out from beneath the sewer grating. A small green mass was lurking there, breathed in its own foul stench. From the way it wriggled slimely about, there was no doubt about it. This was the thing that had snatched up Hooch in its tendril. Where's Hooch? Mean Clean demanded. That doddering old fool. He made a fine meal from my prime mass. A moment later, something launched toward them from the drainage ditch. It rolled to a stop on the pavement. Only then did they realize that it was Hooch, or what was left of him. Man, what happened to you? Most of his jar was gone. The roots of the plant that had been potted within him now barely managed to cling to his face, holding it together. He was on death's door. Mean Clean stared daggers at the green thing. Why are you after me? No, after us. Do you ask yourself why you eat before each and every meal? The thing demanded. Its tone dismissive. Eating what one wishes to eat is only natural. Those who circle back around, those who bear the seal, they are little more than a nuisance. As far as our plan is concerned. Plan? To cover this world in garbage. To consume more and more, producing ever more waste. We will forge a world where the words reduce, reuse, recycle are heard no more. Even you so-called reusables will be discarded, will become trash in the truest sense. You will become one with us. Be thankful. The green thing snickered and flashed a set of jagged teeth. Resist all you like. You're doomed to fail. As long as rotten food waste exists, we will proliferate and grow. The green thing slowly began to emerge from the sewer drain. My prime mass is steadily expanding, devouring the trash strewn about the city. Eventually, we shall engulf all of Shibuya, enveloping it in death and decay. Big Joe and Flaps drew in closer to Mean Clean. He spread his arms wide to shield them. Colorless blood dribbled from his hastily bandaged injury. Mwahahaha, the rotten thing laughed. You think you can fight me in your condition? You can barely stand. The thing was right. Once he had lost all of his water, Mean Queen would die. If he tried to fight this monstrosity now, he would never survive. You three will make a tasty snack. Time to die. And with that, the green thing rushed toward Mean Queen and his friends. Flaps shrieked. Suddenly, with a sound like a watermelon splitting, the green mass disintegrated into tiny bits. In the blink of an eye, the bits had all dispersed into the air. Whoa! Big Joe blurted. What the heck just happened? His voice was trembling. He looked around in bewilderment. Juice, is that you? Mean Queen called out. On the rooftop of the building across the way, something glimmered in the afternoon light. They saw a bottle body, clad in a trench coat. Thick eyebrows jutted above a pair of sunglasses. Mean Queen knew the figure well. Long ago, he had aided in the fight against the vegetable cult. Juice Malone, the legendary sniper. Juice's sunglasses flashed in the light once more. Then he whirled around and vanished from sight. Old man! Mean Queen and the others rushed over to Hooch's fallen form on the pavement. Hey, hang in there! Mean Queen, is that you? Hooch's voice was dry and raspy. I'm done for. Don't say that. It's all right. I know my body better than anyone. They gazed at him solemnly. It was remarkable that he had lived this long, given his grievous injuries. Mean Queen, there is something I need to tell you. Hooch struggled to get the words out. Mean Queen nodded. I've been wondering what you were going to say earlier. Hooch nodded weakly. Now listen well. Mean Queen, you... Mean Queen held his breath. There's a hole in your stomach. Yeah. Which means there's a hole in your stomach. I know that. And? No, I just mean... What I'm trying to say is... You have a hole in your stomach. A long silence fell. Hooch quietly breathed his last. In the aftermath of Hooch's passing, Mean Queen and the others decided that they had to take action. If the prime mass of the green monstrosity was growing by eating trash around the city, they just had to gather up as much trash as possible. That should halt things' growth, reducing the threat it posed to everyone. They would need a safe place to dispose of the trash once they collected it, but they didn't have time to think that far ahead right now. At the moment, they just needed to pick up as much trash as they could. Ryogi, Harajuku, Ebisu, Daikaniyama, Shoto. Then, in the midst of their trash-collecting expedition, Big Joe suddenly halted in his tracks. Dude, this place is a cafe, right? He cried out in excitement, staring at a nearby building. There's something I've always wanted to do at a cafe. What are you on about now? Flaps let out a weary sigh. I don't think this is really the time. Oh, shut up, you. I was talking to my dude here. Big Joe turned to Mean Queen, his eyes pleading. Come on, dude, please. Just 3 minutes, that's all I need. Mean Queen shrugged. Knock yourself out. Once inside the cafe, Big Joe took a deep breath. He couldn't quite hide his nerves. He looked over at a waitress busily bustling about. Oh gosh. Excuse me. One coffee, please. Big Joe grinned at the others. Man, I've always wanted to try coffee that wasn't from a can. The three waited patiently, but nobody brought Joe's coffee. They sure are taking their sweet time, Mean Clean grumbled. Yeah, this has been taking far too long, Flaps said. Maybe she didn't hear your order? He peered at the waitress dubiously. Guess you don't have much choice, said Mean Clean. You'll have to make do with that, Big Joe. Huh? Mean Clean pointed to a pair of coffee cups that had been set out on a nearby table. A middle-aged man in glasses sat there. He was scowling, probably in a nasty mood. The other seat was empty. It looked like whoever had been sitting there had stepped away for now. The man was engrossed with his laptop, so Big Joe seized the opportunity, hopping up on the table and bringing one of the cups to his lips. A bitter, dry taste filled his mouth. The flavor was nothing at all like that of canned coffee. He drained the cup in a single gulp and scampered back down to the table. How was it? Mean Clean asked. Big Joe had a distant look in his eyes. So that's what real coffee tastes like, he said. Just then, a woman returned to the empty seat, staring in consternation at her cup. Dad, did you drink my coffee? Huh, of course not. Well then why is my cup empty? What? The middle-aged man looked stunned. Honestly, first you used my cell phone without asking, now you're drinking my coffee? What are you trying to pull, Dad? Hey, hold on. Yes, I used your phone, but I did not drink your coffee. As the two launched into an argument, Mean Clean and his friends hurried out of the cafe. The trio split up in order to gather litter from all across Shibuya. Garbage was lying all over the place. There wasn't much need to search. Half-eaten slices of bread, half-drunk bottles of juice, banana peels, apple cores, cup noodles, hamburgers, ice cream, gum, candy wrappers, fried chicken, fish bones. Everywhere they looked, there was enough to fill a trash bag in the blink of an eye. There seemed to be no end to it. Increasingly disheartened, Mean Clean, Big Joe, and Flaps continued their desperate mission. Mean Clean was steadily losing water, but he couldn't let himself worry about that now. They had to stop the evil grain thing. They had to do whatever it took to keep its prime mass from growing. Deep in the very core of his being, Mean Clean knew this to be true. Hooch was dead. Mean Clean was close to death himself. But something deeper than sadness or anger drove him forward. Back when he battled the vegetable cult, Mean Clean had what you could have called a sense of justice. But once the fighting was finished, the state of Shibuya had left him feeling empty. After that, there had been nothing but a dark hole in Mean Clean's heart. Now he finally felt like he might be able to fill that hole. No, he had to fill it. He didn't want to ever feel that emptiness again. Center Guy, Spanish Hill, Fire Street, the Moyai statue, Hachiko, Nejidori. Plenty of cigarette butts and spat-out wads of gum lined the shoulder of the road. This is just plain filthy. Mean Clean and the others continued their trash collection. Gee.
Go back. Tossing cigarette butts and empty cans out into the street can potentially hurt people, and it definitely makes a mess. Please don't litter. It'll just make Mean Clean angry. They had to gather up trash before the malevolent Prime Mask could get to it. Mean Clean made his way down the section of Mejidori that ran along the Shibuya River, picking up garbage as he went. Plenty of cigarette butts and spat-out wads of gum lined the shoulder of the road. First things first, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. Then we can have ourselves a chat. Mean Clean knew that voice well. It was Achi. The girl called Hitomi was by his side. They were with some tall foreigner in sunglasses. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Your father might be one of the key players in this case. The man with the sunglasses spoke with cool authority. Achi gave him a steely-eyed glare. Sorry, my voice. The situation looked pretty tense. Mean Clean called out to Achi as he headed on his way. I'm not sure what's going on, but hang in there, buddy. You and me both. By now, a half hour had passed since the friends had started picking up trash. Somehow they'd managed to gather up all the trash around the city. Together they amassed a veritable mountain of garbage bags. That's it, no more trash, Mean Clean said. He didn't look happy, though. Neither did Big Joe and Flaps. But that can't be, Flaps murmured. This is odd. Too odd. Big Joe clenched his hand into a fist. He was right. It was odd. They'd gathered a tremendous amount of trash, but still it was clearly not enough. There was simply no way that this could be all the trash in Shibuya. Mean Clean knew that painfully well from what he'd seen of the city with Achi every day. Were people becoming more mannerly and littering less than they used to? Had Achi's daily cleanup efforts actually borne fruit? An all too optimistic fantasy, but it was a nice thought. There was only one possible conclusion. They were too late. Everything they'd done had been in vain. Flaps was unable to hide his fear of the threat that this implied. All Big Joe could do was sigh. "We're just gonna have to do it," Mean Clean said. "Do it? Do what?" Big Joe sounded almost too worried to ask. "Isn't it obvious? We go and we find that prime mass thing, we take it out." "But that thing we met earlier said it would just keep coming back. It doesn't even matter what we try and do, there's no point to it." Mean Clean smacked Big Joe upside the head. "You dolt! You're gonna give up before you even try?" "But..." "No buts. Besides, I don't see you coming up with any better plan." Big Joe sulked and turned away. "Plan or no plan, how are we supposed to fight an opponent that won't even show itself?" Flaps asked. The juice box had a point. Mean Clean wasn't sure what to say to that. The enemy was in hiding, and they couldn't fight what they couldn't see. Mean Clean was getting more and more riled up, with no target for his fury. "This is such a waste of anger energy," he railed. "There's no point to it now when there's nothing I can do with it." He stamped on the ground in a huff. And then the ground began to shake. The heap of trash bags began to collapse before their eyes. Several dozen green feelers thrust up from underground. The ground split open and the bags of trash vanished into the earth. Silence. The place where the trash had been lay empty, as if nothing had ever been there in the first place. The trio had no words. Then a booming thunderclap split the blue sky above them. A massive black shadow loomed overhead. "Whoa, is that thing for real?" Big Joe stared up at the sky in horror. Metabone. The monstrosity drifted between the buildings. It was huge. Too huge. As they watched, it slurped up the green mass from underground, continuing to grow. There seemed to be no limit to its size. "I'll handle this, dude," Big Joe told Mean Clean. He adopted a fighting stance. "Flaps, take him and get out of here." "No, I can't let you do this." "That thing may be big, but it's all soft and squishy. Don't worry, I'm made of metal." Big Joe leaped high into the air, launching himself at the monstrosity. The instant he impacted the mass, he was sucked right in. There was a metallic squirk as his body was crushed. "Big Joe!" Mean Clean and Flaps soared up into the air, weaving to avoid the monstrosity's extended tendrils. Now that they were on eye level with the thing, it seemed even bigger than before. This was not an opponent that they could fight by recklessly rushing in headlong. Ugh. Mean Clean's side screamed in agony. There was almost no water left inside him. He had barely any strength in his arms, and his mind was foggy. At this rate, there was nothing he could do to stop himself from being devoured like Big Joe and Hooch. "Alright, let's light this thing up," Flaps cried. In his hands was a cigarette lighter, the flame already lit. "I picked this up while we were gathering trash," he said.
If this monster's made out of food scraps and methane gas, and we got a flame near it, it should explode.
Flaps was already charging toward the beast, the lighter held out in front of him.
Die, you son of a bitch!
Flaps, don't do it! Mean Clean hurried to stop him. Don't get any closer to that thing! Flaps hesitated in midair, looking back at Mean Clean with a frown.
But this is the only way. This thing already took down Hooch and Big Joe. And look at the condition you're in. What else can we possibly do?
But this is exactly what it wants. Flaps's eyes went wide. Oh, I finally understand what it meant. Eventually, we shall engulf the entire city, enveloping it in death and decay. Remember that? Mean Clean looked down at the city below, at the houses and office buildings, at the passers-by and vehicles coming and going. It wants to slurp up tons of trash, inflate itself to giant size, and then cause a massive explosion. Once that happens, the city will be a disaster. That's what it meant by enveloping everything in death and decay.
No.
Trust me, put out that light. We can't risk blowing up the city. Flaps paused in thought for a few moments, then took his finger off the button on the lighter. With a sudden whoosh, one of the creature's long tendrils darted out and snatched him up.
Mean Clean!
The juice box struggled to croak the words out. A moment later, he was absorbed into the slimy green tentacle. Mean Clean clenched his teeth and rushed toward the monster. Rage filled him. His body moved of its own accord. He unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks, but the creature easily batted them aside. He felt certain that if he tried to grab hold of a tendril, he'd immediately be engulfed within its squishy mass. The thing seemed to be toying with him as a cat toys with a mouse. Mean Clean retreated a short distance and squared off with the monstrosity once more. It was a hopeless fight. No matter how many times he attacked the thing, his strikes had no effect. The thing was going to kill him. It was only a matter of time. Wasn't there something, anything he could do? As he teetered on the brink of consciousness, Mean Clean's mind raced. The creature slowly stretched its tendrils toward him, heralding his end. A sudden gunshot split the air. The monstrosity froze in its tracks. Juice! On the roof of the building below, Mean Clean spotted Juice Malone, down on one knee, sniper rifle at the ready. Juice fired off 3 shots in rapid succession. All 3 struck the monstrosity right between the eyes, mere millimeters apart. Mean Clean felt a brief ray of hope, but it turned quickly to despair. The creature calmly brought a tendril up to its face and scratched itself between its oozing eyebrows. The bullets had been no more than mosquito bites to the thing. The monstrosity fixed its gaze on Juice, and its huge maw bent into an unnerving grin. It extended one of its finger tendrils and gave the end a sharp flick, sending the bulbous tip flying toward him. Then it quickly launched 3 more blobs, gleefully mimicking Juice's attack. Juice readied his weapon again and fired at the incoming projectiles, but the bullets vanished into the slime to no effect. Juice! One of the green globules struck Juice dead on, and the faint sound of shattering glass tinkled through the air.
Bwah, bwah, bwah.
The monstrosity chortled malevolently, then lashed out with its tendrils. Ugh! A direct hit. Mean Clean was sent hurtling into a gap between 2 buildings. Why is there so much words? Damn it! Mustering the last of his strength, he launched himself back up into the air. Another tentacle strike was already coming his way. The creature had anticipated his return. Ah, crap, Mean Clean thought, but it was too late to avoid the blow. The monster's mighty swat slammed him into the ground. The bandage on his belly came loose, and the remaining water inside him began to dribble out. Soon he would lose the last of it. Fighting breeds hatred, and hatred only breeds more fighting. I'm not someone who is used to incurring the enmity of others. What are you doing, Sacho? Go! What's the matter? Come at me! Come on, hurry up and die already! As his mind grew ever more hazy, Mean Clean heard a series of strange voices. Ah, theater troupe? Where am I? What is this place? Theater... The actor... A wave of chill mist wafted over him. What was he doing here? He couldn't die in a place like this. Go! Spurred on by the voices, Mean Clean got to his feet. Not yet. I'm not dying like this. I am not dying like this. Mean Clean waddled his way back up into the air. He was battered from head to toe. The odds were overwhelmingly against him, yet a hint of a smile came to his face. I will do this. Just you wait and see. The wave of cold from earlier had caused clumps of whitish ice to solidify inside of him. Face me, he called out to the green monstrosity. I'm gonna kick your ass. The creature let out a roar and moved to attack. Foul tentacles lashed at Mean Clean from every side. He chose one of them and launched himself bodily toward it. Rawr! The violent impact knocked him senseless and sent him sailing in the direction of Shibuya Station. Monstrosity hovered above the city, basking in the light of victory. Now no one was left to stop it from turning Shibuya into a wasteland. It spotted some power lines and reached out a feeler toward them. It was ready to blow itself up. Shorting out the lines would send up a shower of sparks. It would only take one of those sparks for the creature to turn Shibuya into a blasted ruin. Slowly, the monstrosity extended its tendril. Its fingertips had mere centimeters further to go. Then the dirty waters of the Shibuya River were split in two, and something came rocketing up from out within. This ain't over yet. It was Mean Clean. River water filled him to the brim, and he surged with vitality. He pointed sharply at the monstrosity. You didn't realize what I was doing, did you? I wanted you to knock me into a river. The creature glared at him balefully. It pulled back the tendril that was reaching for the power lines and swung it like a whip at Mean Clean. Juice! Mean Clean shouted as he nimbly dodged the attack. Juice! If you're still alive, answer me! Almost at once, a gunshot rang out. Juice was down there on the rooftop below. Green ooze had consumed a part of him, but he somehow managed to cling to life. Shoot! Mean Clean shouted. Shoot me!
Juice raised an uncomprehending eyebrow. Do it! Shoot me! It's the only way! Juice hesitated for a moment, then lined up Mean Clean in his crosshairs. The bullet punctured Mean Clean's body. More! Shoot me more! He strained and stiffened in order to keep the bullet locked in place inside him. Shoot! Shoot me, Juice! He winced with pain as several more bullets struck him in the belly and back. It took all of his might to keep them from blasting right through him. Alright, preparations complete. Mean Clean lunged for the monstrosity. The monstrosity bellowed, its toothy maw yawning wide. Mean Clean sailed right into the thing's open mouth and was swallowed whole. A moment later, the monstrosity ruptured open with a stupendous sound. Its scattered remains dissolved into mist and vanished into the air. There hadn't been an explosion. Its insides had simply swollen and expanded until they couldn't be contained. Big Joe and Flaps tumbled to the ground. Ow, 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 ow. Are we still alive? The two looked around in bewilderment, trying to process what had happened. Then Mean Clean clattered down beside them. Mean Clean! Big Joe and Flaps rushed to his side. Half of his body was gone. Cracks zigzagged across what was left of him. Flaps gently set a hand against Mean Clean's body. He's so cold. He's dying! Big Joe's mouth hung open, aghast. Hey now, don't go holding a funeral for me just yet. Mean Clean's voice was little more than a whisper. He couldn't even muster his usual triumphant grin. He had to struggle just to keep breathing. I kick that thing's ass. Mean Clean looked up into the sky. Big Joe and Flaps followed his gaze. There was nothing there but the bright blue sky. The blue sky of a lovely spring day. That was amazing, Big Joe said between sobs. I knew you could do it, Mean Clean. But how? Flaps asked, wiping at the tears in his eyes. Dry ice. Dry ice? Yeah, I saw something on the news once. About an accident caused by a plastic bottle bursting after it was filled with dry ice and water. Decided to put that to practical use. Oh, I get it, Flaps said. Now that you mention it, when dry ice sublimates, it expands to a volume over 700 times its solid size. Mean Clean, you could hold enough dry ice to expand to a volume of over 350 liters. Flaps nodded in understanding, still crying. And then, when you had Juice shoot you, you kept the compressed gas inside your body, and let the bullets blast out from inside you all at once. That's amazing, dude. But also way too reckless, said Big Joe. Yeah, I guess. Desperate measures for a desperate situation. Don't try this at home, kids. There was a distant look in Mean Clean's eyes. Big Joe, Flaps, please toss me in the bin. Big Joe and Flaps exchanged glances. Reusable waste, said Flaps sullenly. You got it. Thanks. Big Joe picked up Mean Clean and walked over to the trash bin. So long, dude. I'll send you on your way. Wait. Mean Clean weakly held up a hand. You still haven't taken my cap off. Always take the cap off of a plastic bottle before throwing it away. Everyone knows that. But dude! Both Big Joe and Flaps had already realized. If the cap were removed, the fine cracks running through Mean Clean's bottle body would break it apart completely. The cap was the only thing keeping their friend together. Don't be ridiculous. No matter how many times I die, I'll keep coming back. I'm not your run-of-the-mill plastic bottle. Mean Clean fixed Big Joe and Flaps with an earnest stare. As long as this city isn't clean, monsters like that one we fought will keep turning up. Until I return, you guys are gonna have to make do somehow. Got it? You got it, dude, Big Joe said. Then, gently, he unscrewed Mean Clean's cap. A moment passed, then Mean Clean's body burst into pieces. Shards of plastic glittered in the air like diamond dust. They were caught up by a gentle breeze and Mean Clean was gone. Goodbye, dude. You were the cleanest. Orange-colored tears stained Flap's cheeks. No. Big Joe's face hardened. This isn't goodbye. It's until we meet again. He clutched the bottle cap tightly in his hand. He squeezed it again, and again, in the hope that his wishes might be heard. There's another face to this city, and you casually gaze at the sights. Amidst all the normal everyday things, there are stories that nobody has told. Now some of them have been heard at last. Today has been a day for many stories, which I hope will live on in someone's heart. Until the day we meet again. Ichimal.
メイキンガーがスタートしました。ここの所長、ここのビルのこの所長はだとすごいですよね。
おっさん、起きろ。起きろ。さあ。はい、カット。はい、ここまでね。はい。はい、いいな。はい。
メイキンはすごく売ってます。はい。はい。バッチリです。
なのであまりお時間もないですが、
ちょっと。今から対決です。うわ、うまいそう。
はい、じゃあ、かざしてください。はい、触ってもらえる。はい、じゃあ、テストお願いします。テスト。
You want me to be funny for the camera, do you now? I love to be funny for the camera. 先輩前。オブ。俺の生き様見てろ。せーの。終わった。
はい、加藤。はい、どうぞ。
頭の中、昭和。5時間分だね。60日の長台風ラストカットになりました。
本当にラストカット。
本当ですかね。
また呼び出されちゃった。渋谷集合。
そういう疑いの目で。
See you again. They're all so cute, having fun together. Clean, door. Clean, door. What is this? Walk past doors in the direction of the doorknob to open them. Then try to lead the trash monsters inside before locking them in. How many monsters can you seal away in 5 minutes? Jump, move and jump at the same time. Okay, climb ladders. Leaving the doorway partway open after monsters entered will prevent other monsters from entering. Use this technique to line up multiple monsters where you want them and round them up all at once. I'm not gonna be good at this at all. I don't understand what I'm doing.
How do I trap these guys? Get me out of here. What am I supposed to do? Try to lead them inside? Leaving the door partway open. Okay, oh jeez. Oops. No, I went out. Never again. Okay, pop quiz time.
第1問
The UA virus is approximately this many nanometer. 100. Yeah.
お見事
Oh, yay! Asao Osu and Yutaro Segawa. Osu snarled at the young man who sat before him in the dingy little office belonging to Takarada Financing. Do you understand what it means to break a promise between men? The man glared back at him. What do you want me to say? He muttered. Ozu had seen that same look plenty of times before, and he despised it. It was the look of a man who hadn't realized he'd already lost. Ozu hated people like that more than anything. 5 million, and the interest on it hasn't been paid. When was the payment for that interest due again? Yesterday. Well, if you knew that, then how come you haven't paid it? Ozu's voice rose to a bellow that practically shook the windows. He couldn't tolerate anyone breaking promises. No exceptions. I understand. Despite Ozu's fury, the man seemed unconcerned. I'll work it off, I'm in shape. His upper arms sported bulging biceps. They were the arms of a fighter. Or if that's no good, I can always sell my organs, the man added nonchalantly. It struck Ozu as a ridiculous offer, the suggestion of a clueless youth. Listen, pal, you can't just up and offer to sell your organs. Your parents would want you taking better care of yourself. I have taken care of myself, and so my organs. Stop jerking me around. Ozu lurched to his feet and kicked the table hard. I'm not jerking anyone around, I'm being serious. The man looked squarely back at Ozu. What did you spend the 5 million on? The older man grumbled. If I tell you that, will you wipe the debt clean? Of course not. Again, Ozu kicked the table. The young man shrugged. I needed some funds to set up a bank transfer scam. Oh. Ozu straightened up reflexively, picking up the scent of money. But a scam like that requires a fake account in someone else's name. Yes, it does. I tried to go through some black market channels to get one, but, well, I just wound up losing my money over and over. The man continued, describing how he'd blown through over 1.5 million yen before landing the fake account. I figured that once I had the account, though, I'd be able to make something work. Thinking that his fraud scheme needed a bigger team, the man had tried to recruit some scam artists online. He ponied up 3 million to use for advance funds for the effort, but once he'd given it over to the team he assembled, they had all skipped town the next day. Now desperate, he'd taken the remaining 500,000 to illegally purchase a list of easy marks. Said list contained the phone numbers of several dozen elderly people who had fallen for such bank transfer schemes before. The man had tried making his way down the list, calling one number after the other. None of the numbers on the list, however, actually wound up connecting to anyone. Rather than craft his own fraud scheme, the man had fallen victim to one himself. You were looking for some suckers, but got suckered yourself, Ozu snorted. Yeah, the man grumbled sullenly. Look, could you please just let me make a quick phone call? Phone call, huh? There's another mark I've been working on since this morning who just needs a little more coaxing. If I pull it off, I might be able to pay what I owe. There was no way this guy was pulling off a scam. From all he'd heard so far, Ozu was sure of it. But that made him all the more amused at the thought of letting this guy have his call. This I gotta hear. Go ahead, make your call. Ozu turned the phone speaker on, then handed the receiver to the other man. With a notebook in his other hand, the man dialed. The phone rang several times, and then someone picked up. Hello, Grandma, it's me. Did you get the money? Oh, Masa, is that you? How's school going? I'm already working now, Grandma. Didn't I tell you? Oh, yes, that's right. Oh, lovely. How's your homework looking for today? Oh, and make sure you come straight home and don't buy too much candy while you're out. The old woman on the other end of the line sounded completely senile. She was under the mistaken impression that this man was her grandson. So anyway, Grandma, you remember what we talked about last time? Did you get the money? Money? Was there something that you wanted? No, it's not like that. Do you remember our phone call from earlier? Phone call? What do you mean? These two weren't even on the same page. Ozu frowned skeptically as he listened to the back and forth. Remember I said I'd been in a car accident? I hurt someone really bad and I need to pay a settlement. Masa, you don't need to lie, you know. Lie? The man looked panicked. I'm not lying. It's alright. Grandmothers can tell this sort of thing. But I'm not lying. I bet you really want to buy some new video game. It's okay, Masa. I've got enough saved up to buy it for you. Don't you worry. I've been all alone ever since your grandpa died, and so I'm just happy when you call me. Buying you a video game is the least I can do. The joy in the old woman's voice left the con artist at a loss for words. Your father and your uncles never come around to see me anymore. I'm so very happy you called. Thanks to you, I feel I might live another 10 years. Forget 10 years. I want you to see 100 more years, Grandma. The young man managed to rasp. His eyes had grown blurry with tears. Masa? Yeah? Will you call me again? Yeah, I will. That's a promise now. I will. I swear I will. Alright, I'll talk to you later then. The man hung up the phone. Oh, they'll make that into a movie for sure, Ozu said with a faint chuckle. You really have no sense for duplicity whatsoever. The man hung his head. But there's something even more unforgivable to me than that. Ozu took a step forward, looming aggressively above the other man. The fellow began to tremble. Real men don't break promises. Ozu snatched the debtor by the collar and dragged him to his feet. I'm gonna have you work off what you owe me real slow. The man blinked in confusion. You're gonna work under me for the rest of my life, and you're gonna keep up your act with the old lady until she dies. Huh? I'm not letting you break your promise to call her. Suddenly, a tiny hint of kindness showed through Ozu's gruff expression. Several years had passed since then. The younger man still makes the rounds with Ozu, still deep in debt. His name is Yutaro Segawa. His schedule for today involves collecting money at the apartment from some broke actor, putting pressure on the president of a publishing company with cash flow problems, and then shaking down some shady guy who's trying to sell some weird diet drink. Slight hint. How did you enjoy that tale? I found it entertaining. This is it. Rubber gloves appear at some point. During that scene, the background zoomed away, right? Try waiting for that movement to finish and see what happened. Okay. Detective Sasayama's pet name for his wife. Mi-chan. Maki Yoneda. One chilled curry soba and make it tasty. What are you talking about? Maki Yoneda snapped from the kitchen. Everything this old gal makes is tasty. She grabbed a bundle of soba noodles and tossed them roughly into the roiling pot. Humming a tune to herself as she tended to the soba, she heard another faint humming join in, seemingly from out of nowhere. Alright, let's do this. The tiny voice had come from down by Maki's feet. Another day for making delicious noodles. A different voice, this time from the shadows of the dingy kitchen shelf. Yeah! A series of diminutive figures, each about the size of a pinky finger, leapt out from amidst the haphazard assortment of spice jars. They lined up on the floor, these tiny little fairies, 7 in total, all carefully keeping out of Maki's line of sight. They were food sprites that had come from Italy and protected the flavor of Dogen Hut's soba noodles. Their leader, Mario, specialized in meat dishes. Salvatore could track down fresh ingredients in the blink of an eye. Cheerful Antonio was a wizard when it came to sauce. There was Marcello, a wine connoisseur and the most sarcastic fellow in the world. Franco, the neat freak, loved a clean and tidy kitchen. None could outmatch the pasta-making skills of Fabrizio, who had a divine touch. Roberto, the quiet one, could tell you all about pizza dough. Maki set the finished bowl of chilled curry soba on the kitchen table. Now! While the woman's back was turned, the sprites added more salt and dashi stock to the noodles. In the blink of an eye, the soba's seasonings were refined to perfection. Magnifico! With their work complete, the fairies hid themselves once again. Just why had these 7 food sprites taken up residence at Dogen Hut? The story begins 2 years prior. Mario and others had been dwelling in a 3-star restaurant in Rome when they heard rumors that there were 5-star restaurants popping up all over Japan. Naturally, as food sprites, they couldn't just stand idly by. Hey everyone, let's go to Japan! And so, heeding Mario's rallying cry, the gang snuck aboard a plane bound for Tokyo. But after finally arriving at the destination, they were unable to find any 5-star restaurants anywhere. By the time they realized that the rumors they'd heard had in fact been mere rumors, they were starving, nearly on the verge of death. They wandered about aimlessly until they arrived in Shibuya. Then as they tottered their way up Dogenzaka, the aroma of curry tickled their noses. The scent came from a soba restaurant called Dogen Hut, partway up the hill. The sprites peeked inside and saw Maki and her husband busily at work. Sneaking into the kitchen, they found that the scent of curry was wafting from a porcelain bowl on the counter. This was Dogen Hut's house specialty, chilled curry soba. Despite their misgivings, the sprites stole themselves a taste. What is this? The food sprites looked at one another in surprise. Hadashi, soy sauce, and curry all come together in perfect harmony. The smooth and chewy noodles offer a different appeal than pasta. The group shouted in excitement, caught up in the moment. So taken were they by the chilled curry soba that they decided to settle down in Dogen Hut's kitchen from that day onward. But then, the owner of Dogen Hut fell ill and passed away. After Maki took over her late husband's restaurant, it quickly became apparent that she had no talent for cooking whatsoever. Shockingly, she couldn't even tell the difference between salt and sugar, rice wine, and vinegar. And she had no idea how to make the soup for the chilled curry soba, sometimes tossing things like curry-flavored rice crackers and meat and potatoes into the pot. If Maki were left to her own devices, the restaurant was sure to go under. "We're the only ones who can save this place," Mario declared. None of the others had any objections. The flavor of the chilled curry soba was worth any effort. And today, yet again, that specialty soba was delighting customers' palates thanks to the helping hands of the sprites. "Okay," Maki called out. "One chilled curry soba. Sorry for the wait." As delicious as ever, ma'am. Really can't get this flavor anywhere else." Down by Maki's feet, the sprites frowned. "We're the ones who made it, though." Maintaining the flavor of the restaurant's dishes was certainly worth doing. Recently, however, it began to feel a little empty. Nobody knew that it was the food sprites who made the soba special. Maki was the one who was always praised for how tasty it was. There was no finer joy in cooking than seeing the smiles on diners' faces. But despite all the sprites' hard work, no one ever had a smile for them. They needed to remain hidden, but the lack of recognition still left them feeling rather lonely. "Oh, that's right," Maki announced brightly. "There's been some talk about releasing a Dogen Hut recipe book." With a start, the sprites looked up at her as one. The old woman was clearly overjoyed. "Uh-oh. What do we do?" Cold sweat broke out across the sprites' foreheads. This was Maki here. She'd probably write about how she made the stock using curry crackers and stuff. "But as busy as you are running the restaurant, do you even have the time to write a book?" the customer asked between happy slurps of his soba. "Oh, don't you worry about that," Maki declared with a broad grin. "I'll get it written in my sleep." The customer blinked in disbelief. "You can't write a book while you're sleeping," he said. "Yes, I can. There are these tiny little sprites who will write for me while I'm in bed." "Ah, come on, now you're just talking fairy tales." The customer chortled loudly. Shocked, the sprites stared up at Maki. "Wait," one of them whispered. Does she?" added another. Suddenly, Maki cast her gaze downward. "You'll handle the book for me, won't you?" she whispered. You've known all along?" The sprite's jaws hung agape. "Of course I have," Maki murmured with a grin and a chuckle. "I don't know how to make chilled curry soba that tastes this good. So thank you. Because of you, my husband's restaurant has been able to go on." And when they saw the big smile on Maki's face, the sprites knew that all of their effort had been worth it. "Well, guess we gotta help out then," Mario said. "It'll take a bit of overtime, but we'll write your book for you, ma'am." "I'm not sure I like the idea of revealing our recipes to the public, though," Salvatore muttered. "And we'll have to put our hearts into the rest of the menu items, too, not just the chilled curry soba," Fabrizio added. Despite all their grumbling, though, the sprites couldn't keep their happiness from their faces. More rubber gloves.
では第3問。
The discounted price for a miracle stone, including currency. I was in France on business at the time, staying in a cheap apartment on the banks of the Seine. Monsieur Yanagishita, you must pay those 10,000 euros at once. Yeah, that was how Marcel Pointier, a general goods trader, greeted me when I opened my apartment door. It was the most unsophisticated bit of French I'd heard by far in my time there along the Seine. Well, you see, this is all rather sudden. 2 days earlier, I had purchased some health products from Marcel. We'd agreed that I pay the 10,000 euro bill a month later. And now here he was, telling me I needed to pay up at once. Monsieur, if you would please, 10,000 euros right now. Marcel, I'm sorry, but I don't have that money, I replied with my own halting French. We had a deal that I could pay a month from now, didn't we? That's not what I want to hear, monsieur. What I want to hear from you is oui, Marcel. Don't worry, I'll have it right away. I hadn't yet sold any of the health products I'd procured for Marcel. I was flat out of cash. I couldn't have paid up even if I wanted to. What in the world is going on? Why are you suddenly demanding that I pay right now? Monsieur, I need that money, whatever it takes, by this evening. He pointed a finger at me. You absolutely must have it by this evening, otherwise you'll find yourself sinking to the bottom of the Strait of Dover. I'll be in touch. And with that, Marcel departed. Ah, man. Now what am I gonna do? That bit of grumbling there was in Japanese. I don't have 10,000 euros anywhere. The reflection in the waters of the Seine looked miserably distorted. Yanugi? I looked up. There was only one person who called me Yanugi on account of not being able to pronounce my name. Isabel? The woman my heart had once burned for stood in the doorway. Isabel, what are you doing here? Work. I'll be here in Paris for a while. I see. Well, what a coincidence. You're as beautiful as ever, I see. And your hairstyle is the same as ever, too. The sight of a familiar face bolstered my spirits, at least somewhat. She may have firmly rejected my advances, but I still loved her all the same. I've been hearing a lot about you, Isabel told me, the businessman who hops around all over the world. Oh, I'm just always living on the edge is all. And when you're doing business with the world, sometimes, even though you know it's dangerous, you need to leap off that edge. Yeah, so there's this product that I simply had to recommend to you. Here. Isabel pulled a doll from her handbag and presented it to me. What's this? Isn't it cute? It's a mascot based on Indonesian folk art. Don't you think they'd be a huge hit in Japan? It had bumpy green skin and bloodshot eyes. There were sharp claws on the ends of its lizard-like hands and feet. Not only was it not charming, quite frankly, it gave me the creeps. Look, I'm sorry, Isabel, but I don't think I need something like this. Why not? Why not, huh? No matter how I looked at it, this just wasn't a design that would sell in Japan. Go on, push on its back. It's back, give it a push. I did as instructed. The doll's arms and legs waggled almost apologetically. See, isn't that marvelous? Whoa. My brows knit as I tried not to frown in front of her. But she sensed my efforts and her expression turned sad. Oh, you don't like it, do you? How many of these dolls do you have? I asked, feeling something like pity. Around 3,000 or so. Wow, 3,000! Would you take them off my hands? Look, I'm sorry, but I really can't. But if some other opportunity comes along... I see. I guess I should have expected that. The doll this creepy. Isabelle turned her back to me, forlorn. And then she muttered softly. I've been thinking of throwing in an extra 10,000 euros if you took them off my hands, but... Oh? What was that just now? Whoa, hey, hold on, Isabelle, hold on. I hurried around in front of her. Can you repeat what you just said, please? Huh? You said if I took them off your hands for you, I'd throw in 10,000 euros. That's it! I thrust my pointer finger forward triumphantly. With 10,000 euros coming in, I'd be able to pay what I owed Marcel. Okay, Isabelle, because it's you, I'll happily take those 10,000 euros. Well, I mean, it's the dolls, not the 10,000 euros. Please give me those 10,000 euros. But the dolls and the 10,000 euros. Okay, I'll bring everything here. How about tonight? No, now, before tonight. I can't do that. Tonight's the soonest I can make it happen. Guess I don't have much choice. I'll just have to make Marcel wait a little longer. I murmured that last part so that Isabelle couldn't hear. So, alright Isabelle, tonight then. Thank you, Yanugi. And don't forget the 10,000 euros. Don't worry, I'll have it for you in cash. Isabelle held out her hand. I really do appreciate this. I'll see you later tonight then. I shook her hand firmly. Likewise. Bonsoir! Looking quite happy, Isabelle departed. Whew, looks like I got the 10,000 euro thing settled. Let out a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. When evening came, Marcel returned. Do you have the money? No pleasantries, just right to dunning me. I decided not to point out his impertinence. Oh yes, absolutely, I replied, grinning as I gave him a thumbs up. Really? You really are my best friend. Now hurry up and hand it over. With a bright smile, Marcel held out one hand. Well, I can't give it to you right this minute. Why not? Didn't you just tell me you had it a few seconds ago? Please, you'll just need to wait until tonight. The 10,000 euros are coming then. Mother, Marcel snapped, red in the face. Please, Marcel, surely you can wait a bit. We're best friends, right? Hear me out, that's all I ask. You're not my best friend. You're a liar. He who will steal an egg will steal an ox. Look, Marcel, calm down. If you just take it easy and wait until tonight, I can give you the money. I promise. Or would you prefer I take that swim in the Strait of Dover right now instead and give you nothing? That put Marcel's railing to an end. At that, he finally agreed, but he insisted on waiting with me. And so we both waited for Isabelle, there in that cheap apartment. I sat on the floor, holding my knees, and Marcel followed suit. I suppose you must despise me for this, huh? He mumbled. He picked up a spoon that was lying on the floor near his feet and hurled it through an open window in the Seine. It disappeared with a sad, lonely plunk. I can't blame you, he said, with how I showed up out of the blue demanding that you pay up. Next he tossed an alarm clock into the river. There was another plunk as before. I suppose I owe you a proper explanation, Yanagishita. Marcel was going to throw the TV remote next, but I reached out to stop him. Tell me, Marcel. So, I've been saddled with some merchandise that's a real pain, he began. The light of the setting sun shone upon his face. I could now see the bags underneath his eyes. The man looked exhausted. They say that whoever owns this stuff is cursed. His eyes quivered with fear. They say, also, that the curse stays with you until you can foist it off onto someone else, he continued. I had no idea what he was talking about. Why can't you just throw the stuff out? If you do that, the curse only becomes more powerful. Now he was trembling dramatically. Whatever had spooked him, he wasn't his usual self, that was for sure. What's happened to you because of this curse so far? I asked. Well, for example, I'm loath to recount here what Marcel told me next, but suffice it to say it was horrifying. Oh my, that's awful. And so I marked these things down to what's practically a giveaway price just to be rid of the lot. But I haven't sold a single one, and the warehouse storage fees aren't exactly insignificant. Marcel shook his head from side to side, his expression positively haggard. So then I thought maybe there was some fool someplace I could push the inventory off onto. Just give it away. If I threw in 10,000 euros to go with it, someone had to be dumb enough to take it, I figured. I see. That's why you needed the money so urgently then. At last I understood. But it's alright now. A little while ago, one of my colleagues called to say they found just the right sucker. That's good to hear. Yeah, so I need to go with them to hand over the money along with the product inventory. I see. You're a lifesaver, Nagashita. Merci beaucoup. No, de rien, Marcel. Huh. What? What was that? Come again now? But man, it's hard to believe someone was dumb enough to actually want this stuff, even with 10,000 euros thrown in, Marcel said. He let out a little chuckle. Hold on a sec. Marcel, can I ask you something real quick? What is it? This colleague you mentioned, the one who found your sucker, it's not a woman named Isabel, is it? Oh, you know her? Yeah, Isabel's great. Got a real knack for finding marks. She's quite the lady. I did the mental math. I give 10,000 euros to Marcel. Marcel gives that 10,000 euros to Isabel along with the cursed merchandise. Isabel gives me 10,000 euros and the dolls. I give the 10,000 euros to Marcel. Marcel, these cursed goods, do they happen to be creepy green dolls? Oui, monsieur. He flashed a broad, toothy grin. I slapped myself on the forehead, good and hard. Don't really understand these hints, but whatever.
第4問
Fill in the blank. You're the one making the blank argument here. Number 4. Extreme.
正解
The Kinder partners. Excuse me, do you have a moment? Tape recorder in hand, Chiaki called out to a pair of young girls who were standing by the statue of Hachiko. Each girl carried a lollipop half the size of her face. What do you two think about Shibuya? The girls looked at one another. Do you not understand the question? Chiaki pressed. The children slowly looked away at their candy. Not really, one of them said at last. Chiaki was taken aback by the girl's grown-up tone. Yeah? Yeah. The girls nodded at one another, their faces disapproving. Huh? Chiaki was confused. What's going on? Do we know you, lady? Huh? See, this is why people keep saying that adults nowadays have no common sense. Yeah, ease off on the small talk. This is the first time we've been met after all. Didn't your mom teach you any manners? Chiaki took a step backward and wrapped her arms around herself as the children stared at her coldly. I'm sorry to have upset you. It's okay, everybody makes mistakes. Being treated like a child by small children made Chiaki blush bright red from embarrassment. Their arrogant reproach left her too flustered to fully process the situation. So what's up? One of the girls went on. Excuse me? Chiaki said warily. You were asking about Shibuya. Yes, of course. Recoiling some more under the under the children's gaze, Chiaki chose her words very carefully. So, what do you two think about the city of Shibuya? Perhaps. The pair quickly lowered their eyes, their expressions forlorn. It used to be nice way back when. Way back? Just when was way back for these two? Nowadays, Shibuya has gotten all dead quiet. Yeah, used to be back in the day you could just stand around here and see something interesting go down day in and day out. Chiaki was utterly dumbfounded by the girl's ostensible worldliness. She listened in fascination as they continued. Yeah, but even that was maybe something that sorta hinged on your mood. I hear you. Maybe it's just our mindset that's changed, that's all. So, I'm guessing you've got tests coming up? Yeah, my mom just will not shut up about nagging me to study. I'm about to start practicing for interviews myself. Oh, it's too early for that. Besides, if anyone messes up the real thing, it's the parent. At some point, Chiaki had become a bystander to the girls searing back and forth. Man, I wish I had more freedom to do stuff. I've started taking piano lessons to help with the enrollment tests, too. Guess you'll never wind up rich if you don't go all out. I hate money. Rich people always have these awful sunken-in faces. Yeah, a while back I saw a father and son buy an entire box of trading cards and they both looked hideous. Yikes. It's kind of a sad story, though. The kid looked like he really wanted something else instead. That's the impression I got anyway. And as usual, the parent was completely oblivious. Yeah, and so the kid had to put on this fake smile of appreciation and everything. I know how that goes. Chiaki felt increasingly inclined to leave, but she wasn't sure how to do so gracefully. Parents these days, she reflected, were foistering off an awful lot of things onto their children. They seemed completely ignorant of how much of a burden was too much. As she stood, vacillating, the conversation continued. But yeah, when our kindergarten teacher plays the organ, there's some real soul to it. It's so moving. Oh, I love her organ playing. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with test prep, you need to learn how to play an instrument. Yeah, maybe I ought to change up my way of life. Chiaki began to feel ashamed of herself. Ashamed that she'd been so simple in her thinking as to expect this interview to be so easy. These kids are really having These kids were having a really tough time of things. Feeling pathetic for her own shallow short-sightedness, Chiaki sank down to the pavement. Oh, hey lady, what's the matter? One of the girls asked. Chiaki hung her head. You got a tummy ache? Want some of this? The other girl held out her lollipop. No, it's not that. Chiaki was only barely managing to contain her tears. Are you worried that the interview's not going well? You shouldn't let it get to you. It's not the end of the world or anything. The cheer on the girls' faces brought Chiaki a small flush of consolation. Yeah, keep your chin up. We can keep going with the interview. We can talk about whatever. There's this place I grab food from a lot that my mom doesn't know about. Maybe we can talk there. They've got these stupid tasty agar jelly strips. Yeah, my mom tells me I shouldn't spend too much on snacks, but you gotta sneak a little of that into your routine. The two girls gently patted Chiaki atop the head. She could tell it just wasn't going to be her day.
Sa, 第5問
Hitomi Osawa's blood type, Bombay. A straight right came her way just as she let down her guard. The blow caught her in the chin, and for an instant she saw white. As she was driven back against the mesh cage, a knee strike hurtled toward her. She managed to change positions just in time to dodge, then close distance with her opponent. Man, she's tough, Miku thought to herself. Bride's open-weight champion, Crybaby Mizuho, was a dyed-in-the-wool, tried-and-true fighter. One of Miku's eyelids felt like it was badly swollen. She was having a hard time seeing. Mizuho's hardy frame was little more than a blur, and the punch Miku had just taken had left her distinctly unsteady. What if this other woman rushed and tackled her? No doubt Miku would wind up down on the mat, where she'd be pummeled over and over. Or perhaps her opponent would instead make use of her expert footwork to deal out some more precision strikes. With the hurt Miku had already taken, dealing with that would be difficult as well. Miku was in a proverbial corner. Oh, how she wanted to just drive a fist right into Mizuho's big mouth. What are you gonna do, Miku? Did you come this far just to lose? Mizuho closed the gap. Her 180 centimeter tall, 80 kilogram frame came charging in. A thin smile showed on her doughy face. Miku had first seen Mizuho fight 1 year earlier. Her face radiated weakness, and she cried when she got hit. Hence her nickname, Crybaby Mizuho. But through her tears, Mizuho fought desperately, managing in the end to pull off a joint lock that won her the match. The crowd went absolutely wild at the Crybaby fighter's underdog victory. But Miku was not convinced by Mizuho's performance. Mizuho was assuredly much stronger than she seemed. She'd taken karate lessons at a local dojo up through middle school. She'd been on her high school intramural wrestling team, and lately she had taken up jiu-jitsu. There was no way a woman like that could be such a crybaby. She'd been fighting at half her potential in order to make things more fun for the audience. Miku knew that, since the matches at Bride were part of the spectacle, making things fun for the customers was important. Even so, she wanted to see the champion fight at her full strength. And so she fought her way up the ladder to get that chance. After winning the match that put her in position for a shot at the title, Miku had grabbed the microphone and shouted to both Mizuho and the crowd. Mizuho, next time you're fighting me, and we're fighting for real. Afterwards, the manager had been furious. By saying fighting for real, he made it sound like the other matches here at Bride are all fixed. It was true that the matches were indeed for real, with no outcome decided ahead of time. But Mizuho's crybaby persona was just an act, even if it was an entertaining one. She spent the first part of each of her fights putting out a lot of fake tears. Miku scowled at the manager. I don't want to fight Crybaby Mizuho. I want to fight Mizuho. I want a fight that's full force from the get-go. You dumbass, roared the manager. Take one look at her. Amongst the slender-framed fighters on Bride's roster, Mizuho stood out as bulging and burly. And not even by the most charitable standards in the world could her face be called pretty. Mizuho's on the roster in the first place because of her crybaby character. If she gave that up, she'd be giving up her position at Bride. Miku fell silent. Was getting a legit fight of Mizuho impossible then? She fretted anxiously about it until the title match finally came. Once the fight started though, the other woman in the octagon was no crybaby. Mizuho unleashed a mighty punch the instant the gong sounded. The blow hit Miku like nothing she'd felt before. The impact shocked her even through her guard. Mizuho then shot forward like a rocket, tackling Miku against the cage. Miku clung to her tightly to avoid being taken to the mat. Mizuho whispered into her ear, "You wanted a real fight? Challenge accepted." Mizuho released her, and retreated to the center of the octagonal ring. Then she held out one hand, gesturing as if to say, "Bring it on." A confused uproar arose from the crowd. This wasn't how things usually went. Miku could feel every cell in her body jumping for joy. Yeah! She rushed at Mizuho with all her might. But the match quickly developed into a rather one-sided affair. Soon Miku was struggling just to avoid getting KO'd too quickly. Her opponent was strong. Stronger than she imagined. Mizuho grinned as she charged forward. Miku was out of options. Was the bigger woman coming in for a tackle? As soon as Miku prepared to defend against a tackle, a wide hook came her way instead. She barely managed to deflect it. And Mizuho rooted her feet and launched into a flurry of punches. Miku was astounded by the fury of the attack. The champion threw punch after punch without bothering to guard herself. Finally, Miku was able to follow up with a single counter-punch of her own. She landed a clean hit right on the bridge of Mizuho's nose. A stream of blood poured out from one nostril. With a gleeful grin, Mizuho stuck out her tongue and lapped at her own blood. Then she set her feet once more and threw another punch. The powerful blow clipped Miku in the temple and her head reeled. Enraged, Miku retaliated with a punch of her own. Neither of the two budged as they traded blows. Before long, amidst the cheers, Miku and Mizuho were merely pummeling each other. There was no skill, no technique. Just two bulls butting heads. Miku's molars clattered. Her lungs felt like they might burst. She was at her body's limit. Just a little longer. It was hopeless, she knew that. But she had to hang in there. Just one more punch, she told herself again and again. Just one more punch. Only halfway conscious, she continued battering back at her opponent. There was an especially loud cheer from the crowd, and then suddenly someone grabbed Miku from behind. "Stop! Stop!" It was the referee. Mizuho was sprawled out at Miku's feet. Victory by knockout with a right hook. Even after the ref said it, Miku could scarcely believe what had happened. She stood there in a daze for a while, and then Mizuho came stumbling over to her. "You got me," she said, fair and square. As soon as she saw the look of gratitude and respect on Mizuho's face, tears started streaming down Miku's cheeks. She tried to hold them back, but they just kept coming. "Hey now, only one of us gets to be the crybaby," Mizuho said, her voice husky with emotion. Tears had welled up in her eyes, too. The two clung to one another, weeping. "I'm so glad I was able to get a real match in the end," Mizuho whispered into Miku's ear. For several months after that, Miku defended her title. While she was warming up backstage one day, the manager came in carrying a cardboard box. "Package for you, Miku." The sender was Mizuho. The box was packed full of oranges. Mizuho had quit the day after their title match. Evidently, she'd gone home to take over her family's farm. Miku peeled the skin off of one, pulled off a section, and ate it. The vibrant, striking, and bittersweet taste, so very reminiscent of their fight, filled her mouth like a little explosion.
第6問
6. Yanaguchita is managing director of this company. 6. Yamato Health Foods.
その通り
The day that Achi came back to SOS. The day when, for the first time in a long while, SOS became whole again. Let's go back 2 weeks before that fated reunion. The gang was in the midst of a minor quarrel. But we have to set a proper example. The pool hall fell silent at Kyoto's aggravated outbursts. Provoking the new second-in-command was a fine way to wind up victim to the guillotine. And so the other gang members remained tight-lipped, warily looking on. Come on, Suzumu, you know I'm right. Suzumu didn't flinch under Kyoto's glare. Set an example of what? All you want to do is get rowdy because you feel like it. Look, just step aside. I've got business with that little punk behind you. Behind Suzumu was a skinny teenager, barely more than a boy. He wore a look of abject terror, like a rabbit caught in a lion's gaze. What exactly is so fun about finding different excuses to terrorize your friends? Suzumu asked. Kyoto snickered mockingly, then grinned. Good question. Guess it's cool messing with guys who joined up with SOS after I did. The conflict, as usual, had started more or less over nothing. Each night, the members of SOS gathered at their pool hall in Yurahajuku. There was no set meet-up time or anything like that. Around the time the place was teeming with other gang members, Kyoto would turn up. Suzumu generally appeared shortly afterward. But today, the last person to show up had been the kid Suzumu was currently shielding. As the young fellow quietly took a seat, Kyoto had suddenly blown his top. The hell you think you're doing? The kid froze with fear at the ferocious shout. But his cringing demeanor only poured more fuel into the fire. Whoever shows up last has gotta apologize, you know. As Kyoto reached for his favorite makeshift wooden cudgel, Suzumu had interposed himself. Suzumu, are you seriously trying to tell me that SOS doesn't have a proper pecking order? That's not what I'm saying. Suzumu continued to stare Kyoto down. But what's it matter? You don't understand anything anyway. Kyoto suddenly rolled up his right sleeve, and sat down and set his elbow on the table, his right hand raised and open like a claw. Want to settle this with a show of strength? A glimmer of challenge shone in Kyoto's eyes. You're on. Suzumu sat down opposite him. Planting his own elbow on the table, he reached across and clasped hands with Kyoto. Kyoto squeezed back, as if threatening to crush Suzumu's palm on his fingers. If I win, he said, you let me do what I want. Someone stepped out of the crowd to act as referee. It was one of Kyoto's cronies. At once, the bar was gripped with excitement, as if a championship game were on the line. Waste that punk, Suzumu. Come on, Suzumu, you can do it. The leader had a strong showing of support from the crowd. You got this, Kyoto. But the upstart's backing section wasn't exactly small either. Looks like we got 'em all worked up, Kyoto said. He picked up an empty beer bottle with his free hand, then smashed it against the edge of the table. Shards of broken glass littered the tabletop between their arms. Oh no. This ought to make things more interesting. Yeah, I bet it will. The referee leaned in, giving the pair tightly clasped hands a quick tap. Ready, and go! The competitor's biceps bulged. Both men started to shudder visibly. Her arms seemed locked in place, neither giving way. Kiru flashed a broad, leering grin, a vein popping out against his temple. Man, you really are a wuss. You ain't leader material. You think so, huh? Suzumu answered through gritted teeth. If you don't keep him on a tight leash, SOS will fall apart, once it's finally gotten big enough. Kiru grunted as he started to bend Suzumu's arm downward. You thick or something? Whoever said anything about SOS getting bigger? Suzumu replied. He struggled to force his arm back up. The walls echoed with the sound of people cheering Suzumu's name. Bolstered by their support, he mustered up his last reserve of strength. But still his arm would not move. Kiru's grip held him like a vise. That's the best you can do. Some leader you are. Then Kiru put all his strength into his arm. Suzumu's knuckles thudded against the table. Tiny shards of glass stabbed into the back of his hand. Yeah! Kiru let out a triumphant cry of victory. Cradling his bloodied hand, Suzumu grimaced back at him. Well, that settles it. Fair and square. Now I'm gonna teach that kid a lesson. Once more, Kiru reached for his cudgel. The young fellow tried to bolt away. Stop right there, Suzumu called after him. You finally come around then, Suzumu? Kiru asked. He twirled the piece of wood around as he sauntered slowly toward his prey. You stop right there too, Kiru, Suzumu added. Kiru paused in his tracks. Hey, what gives? The kid tilted his head questioningly. Apologize to Kiru, Suzumu said. The youngster blinked in disbelief. I said apologize, Suzumu repeated. Yeah, okay. The kid bowed his head deeply. I'm sorry, Kiru. That should settle things, right, Kiru? Kiru went red in the face. What the hell, man? Are you kidding me? Enraged, he stepped forward to swing his club at the kid. I told you to stop. Suzumu drove his bloodied fist right into Kiru's face. There, he snapped as Kiru staggered backward. I think that's enough violence for one day. The look on his face was nothing short of blood-curdling. If that's still not enough for you, next up we can settle things with our fists. Once again, he and Kiru were staring daggers at each other. With a click of his tongue, Kiru was the first to look away. Alright, I'll back off for today. Tossing aside his club, he stomped out of the bar. So, thank you so much, murmured the kid apologetically. His gaze was fixed on Suzumu's hand. Even as he told the kid not to worry about it, Suzumu could feel doubt welling up like a storm inside him. Kiru had said, for today. At some point, the two of them really were going to wind up coming to blows. And Suzumu couldn't lose that fight. No matter how tough Kiru was, Suzumu wasn't going to let him become leader of the gang. Especially not considering who it was who'd put Suzumu in the position in the first place. With a newfound determination, he clenched his injured fist, even as the blood continued to stream down. Femme fatale. And he passes strange writing.
続いて第7問
Question 7. The 22nd performance by the theater troupe The Wandering Angels. Voix.
その通り
「 If I had to compare it to something, it would be gum stuck to the bottom of a shoe. I, Shinosuke Orai, first came across the impulse when I was young. It's good that you got to see this while you were still little, my parents said to me. We had gone to see one of Shakespeare's 4 great tragedies, The King Lear. The material was a bit difficult for me at the age. Even so, the dazzling sets, the sublime music, and the true-to-life acting struck me to the very core. How amazing it all was. To think that something like this existed in the world. It was a setting I wanted to hurl myself into. I wanted to move others with the same impulse that had moved me. From then on, these thoughts were never far from my mind. And then, when I was in 2nd grade, I made my debut as a stage director. When the school was deciding the program of the arts festival, I eagerly proposed King Lear. The rest of my class was, of course, rather flabbergasted, but as no other suggestions were put forth, Lear was chosen. I raised my hand to volunteer as director. Since the rest of the class was unsure what a director even was, no one raised any objections. It was my directorial debut. I poured my heart and soul into it. Little did I realize that I had started down a road of hardship. We had 10 days for rehearsal before the opening. Why don't you know your lines? I told you that you had to have them memorized by today. Sorry, I forgot. You forgot? You think that's gonna cut it? I lashed out at a classmate who had yet again dropped his lines when we were already well into the rehearsal. How someone could fail to remember 3 measly lines was beyond me. Thinking back now, I've encountered an awful lot of actors over the years who simply refuse to listen to what their director tells them. What makes them so reluctant to faithfully follow directions? Are you really okay with the prospect of flubbing your lines during the actual performance? You can say them yourself, I'm busy. The only thing you're busy with is TV and games. The class suddenly fell silent. I leaned back, staring at them. A few of the girls began whispering to one another. Look at him acting all high and mighty when he's not even class rep. Yeah, he's not a teacher. He can't go around telling everyone what to do. Everyone hates the director. I've learned that from the television programs I watched to learn more about drama. The director would pelt the actors and backstage crew with vitriol, toss out absurd instructions without compunction, and even hurl ashtrays across the stage. It was a job to perform without mercy. Directors don't lash out because they're bad people, mind you. But you have to be something of an ogre in order to assure that both you and the audience are satisfied when the curtain falls, to attain the sense of accomplishment that comes from true artistic achievement. Enough of the yammering. In my rage, I searched around for an ashtray, like they have those in 2nd grade. They don't keep those in elementary school classrooms, however, so instead I grabbed and hurled the nearest pencil case. It's only natural for a born director to behave with such intensity. No sooner had I thrown the case, however, than the homeroom teacher snatched me by the scruff of my neck. Before long, I was in the staff room, getting a lecture crammed down my throat. Then I was made to return to the classroom and apologize to everyone. Still, I had not lost my passion for a successful production of King Lear. I would not be disheartened by such a minor setback. At rehearsal, after school the following day, the teacher addressed us. In order to take some of the burden off of young Mr. Arai here, everyone will direct the production together. Yes, ma'am, the class replied as one. It was beyond absurd. Naturally, I was vehemently opposed to the idea. Democracy has no place in the world of art. The enjoyment comes from a clash of individuals who excel in their given roles, each refusing to compromise one iota. But the teacher would have none of it. It's all well and good to take this seriously, but we don't want a repeat of what happened yesterday. Let's all be friends, alright? Let's be friends. Did she think that fine art could be created by being friends? I could only grimace at such a laughable misconception. And so began our new rehearsal system. We would practice a scene, and then everyone would offer their opinions about it. You need to look at the person you're speaking to, I railed angrily. Where you look is important. Others chimed in from all around. What does it matter where you look? What if we tried reciting our lines while jumping? Say, I'm playing a tree. Can I have some dialogue too? I'm trying to figure out if it needs more yikes or more ta-da. Nobody could tell at this point whose instructions they should follow. From the very outset, it was chaos. Everyone just said whatever they wanted. There's no way I'm holding hands with a boy. This costume looks dumb. How about something more, like, superhero-y? Give me a new part. I should play the lead. Taste the wrath of the mighty Cornwall Slash. Stop all the rambling. Stick to the script. My anger had finally boiled over. We're all supposed to offer opinions though, right? Yeah, Roy, quit your belly aching. You're such a bellyacher. Bellyacher, bellyacher, bellyacher. This mad whirlwind, which no one in their right mind would call rehearsal, continued for days. A whole week passed. At last, once everyone had finally realized that the new approach was getting us nowhere, I was reinstated as the play's sole director. There wasn't much time left before the main event. Never before had I thrown so much gusto into the craft. What's with that monotone? You need to put more feeling into it. You're not reading from a textbook. I was not one to go easy on my actors. But I'm shy. No excuses. You're not bringing enough realism to the part. You need to give it more oomph. Okay, fine, I'll try. Thanks to my fierce directing, others had improved bit by bit. With just a little more patience, a truly grand sense of accomplishment could be ours. At long last, I was sensing a real response to my work. And then it all changed. The boy who was playing the back half of the horse suddenly took down his pants. His underwear came down next. What? Oh no! Then he squatted down on the spot. His brow creased with the strain of effort. He was really doing this. The entire class flew into an uproar at this rather sudden development. Girls ran away, boys broke out laughing, the teacher rushed in unthinkingly to cut both hands under the young fellow's backside, and I just stood there dumbstruck. Once everything had finally calmed down, I went to talk to him. What were you thinking? I demanded. You said that you wanted more realism, so I figured the horse should take a dump. I had no words. That sure counts as real, alright, someone called out. The class erupted in raucous laughter. The energy drained from me in an instant, and I collapsed to the floor. Real. Was that what real meant on the stage? I couldn't deny that taking a dump qualified from a certain perspective. The bowel movement itself had definitely been genuine. It had been live. It gave a certain ambience. Was that wrong? It hadn't been the kind of realism I'd been after. I'd been hoping for something else, for a sense of tension that went beyond mere fabrication, that expressed the clashing of life's various emotions. In my confusion, I clutched my head. Was this how my art was to fall apart? You stupid amateur! Before I knew it, I had blown my top, launching into a wild rant. I don't recall what happened next. I didn't recover right away and wound up missing school for a while. The school arts festival went on without me. I heard it was well received. What is art? What is drama? What is man? What is the world? Whenever I try to ask and answer these questions, I always think back to that experience back when I was young. If I had to compare it to something, it would be gum stuck to the bottom of a shoe. No, An AM radio broadcast washed out with static. No, a cut of meat that's been steamed for too long. No, perhaps more like a sodden doormat. No, maybe it's like... Yes, it's something like a love letter, written in the dead of night.
第8問、さあどうだ
Question 8. Maria needs to be quarantined to prevent this pandemic.
その通り
There are 2 sheets of paperwork here. They're printouts of material found on some underground internet site. The contents are classified information from Akoshi Pharmaceutical Company Limited. In all likelihood, they were leaked from a PC that had been infected with some kind of spyware. Herein are the full details of the dreadful contents of those pages. Analysis results for Chiriko Osugi, Akoshi Pharmaceutical Company Limited, Research Development Division, top secret, handle with care. Number 1. Findings. It has been confirmed that a previously unknown enzyme is being produced within the body of Chiriko Osugi, hereafter the subject. Enzyme has been named hypersustenant triazase after the subject. 2. Effects. The main function of hypersustenant triazase is the digestion and breakdown of triglycerides. When compared to the enzyme lipase, which possesses the same functions, hypersustenant triazase is capable of breaking down fats far more efficiently and without the stimulation of exercise, and is effective in preventing excess fat accumulation within the body. However, once the subject's body fat percentage drops below 40%, her body no longer secretes the enzyme. The trigger for this change is unknown. 3. Potential business plan. Market the enzyme as a diet food product or medicine. Especially when administered under strict medical protocols, the enzyme should be effective in markedly reducing body fat without need for surgery. 4. Remarks. Plan 24-hour observation of the subject for a 10-year period underway. The reason that hypersustenant triazase is no longer secreted after body fat drops below 40% to be discerned as soon as possible. From this paperwork, it's evident that one of Japan's leading pharmaceutical companies is carrying out surveillance of private individuals in secret. Is this constitutional? The contents of the second page are even more shocking. Chiriko Sugi Behavioral Inducement Proposal. Top secret. 1. General overview. Chiriko Sugi, hereafter the subject, is to have her dietary and exercise habits engineered. Goal: maintain the subject's body weight above 40% body fat. 2. Reasoning. According to recent measurements, subject's body weight is trending downward. The cause of this trend has been established as the subject's growing attention to her own diet. It has also been confirmed that the subject has taken massive doses of the dietary supplement Burning Hammer. This could lead to substantial delays in research into hypersustenant triazase. 3. Methods. Further discussion is required to assess ongoing behavioral adjustment methods, but the following have been approved on a temporary basis. In addition, other methods, once deemed effective, should be employed without delay. There's no upper limit to our expenses. Given the urgent nature of the situation, progress reports shall be issued directly to the project supervisor. Example: Entice confectionery store operated by 5-star patisserie to open shop in subject's neighborhood to Megaya. Sponsored food products with excessive amounts of fat and sugar in the guise of product symbols. Provide financial support for or open additional franchises of restaurants touting eat number servings and your meat is free. Host an eating contest. For remarks. As a full assessment of hypersustenant chiraze has yet to be completed, any hindrances to further research must be eliminated. We have also received reports that competing companies are aware of the subject's unique characteristics. Given the 10 years our company has already spent on the discovery of the subject and research into her unique physiology, the subject must be prevented from weight loss by any means necessary. We must attain a monopoly on hypersustenant chiraze. These are the contents of the 2 pages. Perhaps it's not mere happenstance that a number of tasty restaurants have popped up around Tomagaya recently. And free food samples are frequently available here, often given out right on the street. There are regular eating competitions held in Shibuya too, and the number of all-you-can-eat restaurants has been expanding. Maybe it's all just part of a plan by Akoshi Pharmaceutical to research a young woman named Chiriko Osugi.
第9問です。
Frank belonged to this section of the Chicago Police Department. Bomb and Arson Squad.
その通り。
What was that? Koji Kuze, sitting in his private study, furrowed his brow. The look on his face was much like the one he wore when he made an appeal to Task Force HQ. But his gaze was fixed on his video camera's LCD display. There was his son, Tatsuya, standing on third base, giving a triumphant fist pump. That's odd. He rewound the videotape a little. Kuze had purchased the video camera to record the tournament his son had competed in. It was able to take footage at full HD with 5.1 channel audio. With a trembling finger, Kuze pressed the play button. The footage started playback right at the point where his son hit the ball up between right and center field. That's it, kiddo, run, run! Kuze really had heard it. Whose voice was that? Someone alongside him had been murmuring the words as he filmed. Go on and run until your heart gives out, sport. But there hadn't been anyone nearby who spoke in such an excitable, childish register. Otherwise, he'd have known right away who the strange voice belonged to. In the video footage, his son rounded second base. Attaboy, Tats! Keep running! Head for third, champ! The unsettling voice was even louder now. And that Tats in there, it sounded oddly familiar. Just who the heck was this weirdo giving cutesy nicknames to his son? You did it, Tats! Woohoo! Yeah, that's my boy! Huh? My boy? So then that means... Kuze swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. No, it can't be. That's my voice? Do I really talk like that? Kuze was flabbergasted. No, my voice can't sound that way. The video camera began to shake in his hands. For the first time in his life, Kuze had been made aware of the childish squeaking he made when he got excited. To hell with this. He lifted the camera high above his head. Before he could hurl it against the floor, he reconsidered. No, he couldn't do it. His son's accomplishments were stored inside that camera. Still, he needed to make sure no one found out about his verbal affectation. If his son heard him sounding like this, Kaze would lose every shred of dignity he had as a father. What should he do? Was there some way he could erase his voice from the tape? He thought desperately for a way. Maybe he could mask it with other sounds and editing. No, that wouldn't work. If he wiped away the crack of the bat and the cheering of the crowd and just replaced it with the musical soundtrack, that would still be pretty awkward. I don't know what to do. Kaze slumped down onto the floor, buried his face in a cushion, and kicked his legs up and down. At this point, he had to take the footage to one of the forensic researchers to see if they could do something with it. There'd be disciplinary measures for misuse of lab time if he ever got found out. But risking that was better than letting people discover that he sounded like a hyperactive 12-year-old when he got worked up. Suddenly, the door opened. "Dad, let me see that video." Kaze's son strolled into the study. "No, I can't do that." "Why not?" Well, there's this voice." He tried to hide the camera as he rambled. "A voice? That's no big deal." Kaze blinked his eyes in disbelief at his son's words. "I came in here earlier and watched part of the footage already." Kaze's jaw dropped. "Tatsuya, so then you heard the voice?" "What voice are you talking about?" This time it was his son who blinked his eyes in confusion. "Well, so, there's this pretty childish voice." Kaze's son broke out chuckling. "Wait, Dad, did you seriously not realize that voice was yours?" "Huh." "Dad, if you're worried about how you sound like a kid sometimes, everyone's known that for a long while." Kaze's jaw gaped even wider. "Come on, Tats, you gotta tell me this sort of thing sooner."
第10問、ついに来た。
This person called Maria Asawa at 1957. So, 7:57. Kanon. It was coming up on 12 o'clock noon. The hour of the devil, the particular devil known to the support center staff as K. The incoming call light on my phone flashed. I gulped reflexively. Then, taking a deep breath, I hesitantly pressed the accept call button. "Thank you for calling Chun Food Service Center. This is Tanabe speaking. This is Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing." I had to swallow back the squeak that tried to rise in my throat. I'd been right on the mark. The phone call was from Kay, indeed. "Hello?" he asked. "Yes, how may I help you today?" "I'm calling about your instant ramen, salt and shivery." This again? I sighed inwardly. Katayama had been calling about the same thing for close to an entire year now. You hardly needed to bother listening to know what he had to say. Why was my ramen still not finished after steeping in hot water for 3 minutes? The noodles were still too hard to be edible. "I'm very sorry to hear that, sir." My response was right out of the manual. "Would you be able to provide some more details, sir?" I continued. "I called about this same thing just last week." "Did you? My apologies, sir." I tried to keep my voice as chipper as possible. Dealing with Katayama was a nuisance. He was a man driven by logic. Treating him the wrong way could lead to disaster. Some of the staff here had wound up listening to his matter-of-fact complaints for upwards of 12 hours, passing out with their phones still in their hands. Very well. For the sake of accuracy, I suppose I ought to explain again, Katayama said. If you would, sir. First, I peel open the lid. I tear open the seasoning packet and powdered soup base and sprinkle them onto the noodles. Add the hot water, close the lid, and wait 3 minutes. But the noodles are still far too hard. This was a familiar sequence of events. I'd heard it before. Begging your pardon, sir. Are you perhaps beginning to eat before 3 minutes have passed? Certainly not. I wait 3 minutes exactly. Are you checking the clock when you do this? Yes, my body's internal clock tells me it's been precisely 3 minutes. The urge to ask him if he was messing with me grew. Sir, perhaps instead of your internal clock, you might want to try using a clock in your home that you have on hand. I have a personal policy not to use clocks or watches outside of my work. As I'd done before, I fought off the urge to tell him what a ridiculous policy that is. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt just once. Perhaps you should try using an actual clock to track the time, sir. My body's internal clock is accurate. 3-minute unit of time is not something I would mistake. No. Clearly it would. You are. You have to be. I wanted to scream. If the product is not properly ready to eat in 3 minutes, that makes it defective. If it were possible, I would have liked to stick my head through the receiver and watch Katayama's 3-minute timing myself. I imagine the lecture I'd give him when he started eating before 3 actual minutes passed. Then in my frustration, I had a sudden idea. Sir, perhaps we can check your internal clock against my clock here and test whether there's any discrepancy. Pretty good idea if I do say so myself. If that will convince you of my claims, then no, I don't mind. Yes. It was time to make this guy eat crow. If there's no discrepancy, however, I expect a proper apology. Now I felt like I stirred up a potential hornet's nest. What the hell. There was no way this guy's internal clock could measure 3 minutes on the dot. Alright then, sir, let's begin. I picked up the stopwatch that was on my desk. Internal clock diagnostic. This may be sudden, but here we're going to see just how accurate your internal clock is. Wait, what? Exactly 20 seconds after you press the button, a message saying 20 seconds have elapsed will appear on screen. How precisely can you judge a 20-second interval? Alright, let's begin. Okay. Exactly 20 seconds. Okay. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10 Mississippi, 11 Mississippi, 12 Mississippi, 13 Mississippi, 14 Mississippi, 15 Mississippi, 16 Mississippi, 17 Mississippi, 18 Mississippi, 19 Mississippi, 20 Okay, 20 seconds have elapsed. How'd you do? Was your body's internal clock accurate? Pretty much. I stare in astonishment at my stopwatch. Well, Katayama asked, his voice composed. 3 minutes exactly, sir, not a second off. It was impossible. I was trembling. So, now do you believe me? My apologies, sir. I hung my head in defeat and heard a stifled chuckle from the other end of the line. Tell your supervisor that your product is defective. And that's when it began. The folks at Chun Food's product development department began work on a secret project. The project's name, Anti-K. Based on Katayama's incessant calls, a reworked version of Salt and Shivery was created. The new label the team had devised listed adjustable times, based on noodle thickness and desired texture. 2 minutes for hard-boiled or thin noodles, 3 minutes for standard, 4 minutes for soft or thick noodles. That ought to shut Katayama up. The product development team was proud of its creation. Of course, even after the new version of Salt and Shivery was released, Katsuyama wound up calling to complain again, but that's another story for another time.
第11問難問です。
This method was used to crack the laboratory password. Side channel? Suguru Makino's life was one of conflict. Playing factions against each other, crafting subtle interpersonal manipulations, he had done whatever was necessary to rise up within his company. He had even deceived close colleagues and sold out superiors who had helped him on the way up. By winning victory after victory on his chosen battlefield, he had managed to become corporate director at Akoshi Pharmaceutical. But he still needed to remain alert. If he let his guard down, he'd soon lose his position to the next guy who came along. To keep his finger on the pulse of industry politics, he always made a point of putting in an appearance at functions he was otherwise disinclined to attend. Executive Director Makino, you simply must come along with me to this place I found. It's got a bunch of cuties I'm sure you'll be smitten with. On this particular occasion, Makino's companion was a fellow who became a real nuisance once he got some liquor in him. The director's wordless reply was a simple, deep furrowing of the brow. Oh no, Mr. Makino, don't worry. I know you detest that sort of thing, I really do, but this isn't going to be like that. It won't be like what? Even after drinking heavily, Makino never lost his composure. But he'd learned early in his career that acting drunker than he was often led to gleaning valuable information, so he let himself sway a bit as he spoke. Well, why not come with the understanding that you'll be surprised? I promise you, sir, you will not regret it. Makino had half a mind to spit in the guy's drunken face in hopes it would shock some sense into him. Nonetheless, he was interested in the technology the man's company possessed. Like it or not, he was along for the ride. Well, if you put it that way. Hey, taxi! The man called out, without waiting for Makino to finish his reply. A cab promptly stopped to pick them up. Makino had assumed they'd be heading to some popular hotspot like Ginza or Roppongi, but instead his companion directed the cab toward the suburbs. Aha! Here we are! Makino was dumbfounded by the sight of their destination. They got out of the car in front of a dingy, multi-tenant building with no signage out front. Surely he hadn't been brought someplace illegal. With a wary eye, he looked over at his companion. Don't worry about it, I'm sure you'll like this place. The man opened the door. Peering cautiously inside, Makino blinked in disbelief. What the hell? The interior design scheme was typical of an upscale cafe, aside from the fact that there were cats all over the place. What is this place? This is the cat cafe, meow meow, the man replied proudly. The cat cafe, meow meow. Makino echoed the words reflexively as he tried to process what he was seeing. Isn't it cute? The man beamed broadly. Oh my... Makino felt a big, bright smile coming on. No, he mustn't. He quickly suppressed the urge. Makino was extremely fond of cats. Due to his wife's allergies, however, he hadn't been able to keep one of his own. Director Makino, is this not really your thing? The man had taken hold of one chubby cat's forepaws, posing the feline like a lucky cat statue. No, I certainly don't dislike it. Makino managed to keep his poker face up. May I ask how you knew I liked cats? I saw the framed photo of a cat that you have in your office. I see. That silly old thing. Still maintaining his aura of calm, Makino stroked a fluffy calico's back. No, not like that, Mr. Makino. You need to pet more gently, and they like it when you rub them underneath the chin. I am well aware of that. Makino suppressed his initial response and instead offered a curt, alright. Scritch. Rub rub. Scritch. Rub rub. The calico let out a throaty hum of contentment as Makino's fingers got busy under its chin. It was so cute! Too cute! Makino had half a mind to get down on the floor and start rolling around. Like Sakaki from Azumanga Daioh. Pardon us. Two young men, seemingly the managers, approached, taking care not to tread on any of the cats. The special course you requested is ready. Let's go, Mr. Makino. Makino's companion joyfully hopped to his feet. What's this special course? It's a secret. You might get a little dirty, so take off whatever clothes you can. Take off my clothes? What for? What in the world are you planning on doing with these cats? Makino felt an unsettling mix of anticipation and unease. Hesitantly, he followed the others into a tiny private room. Just step inside and feel free to lie down and relax. With that, the managers departed. As per his companion's instructions, Makino stripped down to his briefs and tank top. After flopping down on the floor, he could hear excited voices coming from the room next door. Yes, amazing! Wait, what? Was the whole cat cafe thing just a front for some licentious backroom business? Had he been tricked? He needed to get his clothes back on right away. Sorry to keep you waiting. Abruptly, the door opened, and one of the managers poked his head in. Let's begin. This may be a bit ticklish, but please try to relax as much as possible, and don't move too much. The manager gently set the cat he was holding atop Makino's abdomen. Huh. Then another on his chest. One in the crook of his arm. Then one on each thigh. Wait, so then this is... Yes, it's every cat lover's dream. The manager grinned brightly. This is the special course, the cat futon. Before he knew it, Makino's entire body was engulfed in more cats than he could count. Ah! A joyful sigh escaped his lips. Now finally, Makino knew who he truly was. Conflict was never what he truly wished for. He wanted something fluffier, softer, warmer. This is heaven! Everything I've ever wanted is right here. Makino was enraptured. The cats on top of him occasionally milled about, purring and shifting position. Whenever they did, Makino would let out a tiny little breath tinged with pleasure. Oh, kitty, kitty, kitty. Tsuru Makino, age 59, executive director of Akoshi Pharmaceutical, a man who had enemies both inside and outside his company, a man who sometimes contended with the nation itself. Hobbies include the cat futon. Yay! Let's see. I guess I'll end it here.
Next time, I guess I'll go through these special episodes. Depending on how long that'll go, then I'll start unlocking the rest. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for whatever these special little episodes are. See ya!